So, three words should stick out to everyone when Donald Trump mused about a third term to NBC's Kristen Welker. He explicitly said, "I'm not joking." And yet, here's how Republican leaders in Congress reacted today.
You know, you see it like with Greenland, like with Panama Canal. There's a lot of things the president talks about. Ultimately, it gets people talking and addresses some other issues, too.
Would you support changing the Constitution to allow him?
There's no proposal to change the Constitution right now.
Do you believe that Donald Trump can serve in a third term?
Not without a change in the Constitution.
What do you make of him continuing to bring up the possibility of that happening?
Well, I mean, I think that you guys keep asking the question, and I think he's probably having some fun with it, probably messing with it.
Just messing with us, guys. It's all a joke. I mean, maybe they somehow missed that an actual resolution has been introduced by Republican Congressman Andy Ogles to amend the Constitution to allow Donald Trump to be elected to a third term. But if they really think it's such a ridiculous notion, then they should have no trouble signing on to the measure introduced by Congressman Dan Goldman, reaffirming support for the 22nd Amendment, right? I'm sure he'd welcome co-signers, Republicans too. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman of New York. It's good to see you. So many things to talk to you about, but I want to start here because on the 22nd Amendment, you proposed this resolution, presumably because you didn't think it was a joke, even though you don't want to get your chain pulled, as Rachel Maddow would say, but you don't think it's a joke, do you?
No, I first introduced it in November, right after he said it to the Republican conference. They all came out, oh, he's joking, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
But I've unfortunately spent enough time studying Donald Trump to know that he's not a comedian. He doesn't joke. And he has a very set MO, which is to float a crazy idea, claim that he's joking, have some sycophantish Republican start to run with it, like in this case, Representative Ogles. And then all of a sudden it becomes normalized and socialized, and that's how he moves it forward. He did it with self-pardoning back in 2018. And this is just yet more of his effort to break our democracy. That is what he's trying to do. He is trying to undermine the very fabric and the foundation of our democracy, pardoning the January 6th defendants, firing all of the inspectors general, firing all of the prosecutors and agents, going after so much of what using the Department of Justice to weaponize it both in favor of his allies and against his enemies. This is what our country is founded on. This is the rules-based order, the rule of law. And this is a massive effort, and it's very clear, to take down our democracy. And the ultimate result for him, the end game, is for him to have another term. And all of this is leading up to that.
You know, we really struggled with how much do we talk about this because he wants to change the subject. And I know that, and we know that. But to your point, he also does this thing where something is floated. It seems insane. It's like what people would follow him. And then the Republican caucus, most of them follow him. So it's important to talk about. Let me ask you about one of the theories thrown out there, because you were also an excellent lawyer in addition to being a member of Congress. The one that he could run as Vance's vice president in 2028 and then have them flip.
I mean, it's preposterous.
Not allowed for, according to the Constitution, I assume you're saying.
Well, actually, constitutionally, I think that's an interesting question. I don't want to opine on it. But the reality is, imagine how that would happen, right? So J.D. Vance runs with Donald Trump as his vice president, saying, I'm going to resign as soon as I become president. Is preposterous. I mean, this is silly stuff they're talking about. And look, you can say what you want about Andy Ogles, but his resolution was not to express support for Donald Trump running for a third term under the current 22nd Amendment. His resolution is a resolution to change the Constitution. Mm-hmm. So even he believes that you have to change the Constitution in order for Donald Trump to have a third term. I don't think, by the way, that he's imagining a democratic election for his third term. He is trying to be Vladimir Putin. And we all know Vladimir Putin is in a democracy. He runs for election. It's a bogus election. But that's Donald Trump's goal. That's sort of his the ideal for who he could become, which is to ostensibly have an election, but not really. And that's where he's heading.
How does he do that legally?
No good way, no legal way, but he's attacking our judges. He is defying, on the margins, court orders. We're 2 months in. I mean, he's got 3 more years. And if people don't stand up for what is right, for a democracy, for a rule of law, and I mean everything, not just judges, but law firms, but universities, everywhere across the board, if the people don't stand up, if everyone doesn't say, I'm not going to be bullied by this person who is anti-democratic and is extorting every single foundational democratic institution of this country, then we will be heading towards that outcome.
So yeah, Donald Trump wanted to change the subject right now and get the attention off of this massively embarrassing screw-up involving the highest-ranking officials in his administration. So in some ways, it wasn't really that surprising when Donald Trump picked up the phone this weekend and called NBC's Kristen Welker. In that conversation, he said he was pissed at Vladimir Putin. Okay. He threatened Russia with tariffs. He threatened Iran with tariffs. He threatened to bomb Iran. And he refused to rule out military action to annex Greenland. It's kind of like he had a note card or a Post-it or something with a list of big shiny objects. And he wanted to cover Russia, Iran, Greenland, bombing something. And he just ticked right through them. And then there was also an exchange in that interview with Kristen about perhaps the shiniest object of all, the blatantly unconstitutional prospect of Trump serving a 3rd term in office. Before I show you exactly what Donald Trump told Kristen Welker about that, and I'll read through the whole transcript for you, I want to show you what he said about it in the past, because that matters too.
I said at a speech recently, I said, watch, we'll drive the media crazy. Let's go for a 3rd term and then a 4th.
Hashtag 3rd term, hashtag 4th term. You'll drive them totally crazy. And then after that, we'll go for another 4 years because, you know what, they spied on my campaign. We should get a redo of 4 years. Based on the way we were treated, we're probably entitled to another 4 after that. I think I'm not allowed to run again. I'm not sure. Am I allowed to run again, Mike? I better not get you involved in that. And I do that despite the fact that they say I can't run again. That's the expression, sir. Then somebody said, I don't think you can. Oh. And they tell me I'm not allowed to run. I'm not sure. Is that true? I'm not sure. Should I run again? You tell me.
Point is, he's talked about this a lot in the past. My bet is that other times when he wanted to change the subject. And yeah, they've sounded like jokes, how unfunny it all is, after all. And with all of that being said and all that background, here's what he told Kristen Welker over the weekend. I'm just going to read from the part of the transcript when he talked about the blatantly unconstitutional prospect of serving a 3rd term in office. So here goes. Trump, a lot of people want me to do it, but my thinking is, we have a long way to go. I'm focused on the current. Welker, have you been presented with any potential plans that would allow you to serve a 3rd term? Trump, well, there are plans. There are not plans. There are methods which you could do it, as you know. Welker, well, let me throw out one where President Vance would run for office and then would basically, if he won at the top of the ticket, would then pass the baton to you. Trump, well, that's one, but there are others too. There are others too. There are others? Well, that's Welker. Welker now. There are others. There are others? Can you tell me another? Trump, no. Welker, okay. So, but sir, I'm hearing you don't sound like you're joking. I've heard you joke about this a number of times. Trump, no, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. He said he wasn't joking. He said it twice. And here he is in the Oval Office just a couple of hours ago.
People are asking me to run, and there's a whole story about running for a 3rd term. I don't know. I never looked into it. They do say there's a way you can do it, but I don't know about that, but I have not looked into it.
Again, decide for yourself how serious you think he is. And decide for yourself how serious his buddy Steve Bannon has sounded over the past few months.
Maybe we do it again in 28.
Are you guys down for that? Trump 28!
I do believe that the Constitution is a little, some lawyers I talk is a little open to that. I think it'd be terrific if President Trump is the candidate in 2028, and I would work for that. If we can figure it out, why wouldn't we?
I'm a firm believer that President Trump will run and win again in 2028.
You know he's term limited. How do you think he gets another term?
We're working on it. I think we'll have a couple of alternatives. Let's say that.
Let's say that. Again, decide for yourself. The Constitution explicitly prohibits it. And again, he wants us to talk about anything other than the signal debacle. And I promised you we're going to talk about that tonight, too. Or, frankly, the too close for comfort special election in Florida happening tomorrow, where Democrat Josh Weil, who we will also talk with later on the show, is polling ahead of the Republican candidate in a seat that Trump won by 30 points. He doesn't want to be seen as someone losing political power or losing control of his team, for that matter. I get all of that. Here's what I would also say about the distraction piece of this.
This scheme is not going away. The third-term scheme. It showcases the authoritarian nature of the GOP, that no Republican, or at least no major Republican, is severely pushing back against this. Now, you might say it's because some of them know it's absurd, and it's almost like he's just blustering like Trump often does. But I think the real answer is that they're afraid to say the truth that Trump can't be president for a third term, because that's not what the fascist cult wants to hear. And again, these things are joke. Trump jokes until it's not a joke anymore, guys. I got to be honest. In Canada, Justin Trudeau thought it was a joke. I was saying it wasn't a joke. I know many of you were, the ones who were Canadians, when Trump was doing the 51st state stuff back in November, December. You weren't calling it a joke, but the Liberals and Conservatives in Canada were calling it a joke, not the NDP, because they knew it was serious from the beginning, because they're the best party in Canada. But it was a joke till it wasn't. And third term's a joke till it isn't. But there's a few things that we need to really point out here. One, this showcases how broken the Republican Party is without Trump. It's fully admitting that they can't survive without him. I've talked about this. They did so bad in the midterms, even when Trump was president. They did pretty bad down ballot in this most recent election. They're doing bad in all the special elections. And so it's like the GOP needs Trump because they can't win without him. After Trump, all the MAGA goons, they're not going to show up and vote. They might not show up vote for the Democrats, but it doesn't look like they're going to vote at all. And more than this, it showcases a weakness with Trump. One of the things that can make a second-term president dangerous if you disagree with them is they don't need to run again. They don't want to be president anymore because they know there's an 8-year expectation. And, you can't hold them electorally accountable anymore individually because they're not running again. But Trump apparently wants to pull some scheme where maybe he runs with JD or whatever, and then JD steps down to make him president, and then Trump appoints him as VP again. Like, the fact that Trump thinks this can happen means that he actually has to worry about winning a hypothetical election, and that makes him vulnerable because he's failing now.